Welcome. So, are you struggling with the effects of trauma or addiction? And if so, then you're in the right place. I'm interviewing Todd McLaughlin from Native Yoga Center in Florida, and we're going to be discussing how Ashtanga Yoga can help with healing from trauma and addiction. My name is Mandi Gardner. I'm the founder of Holistic Evolution Shala. I am an Ashtanga Yoga teacher as well as a DBT skills coach. So, when we talk about looking at Ashtanga Yoga and addiction recovery, are there any stories that you could share or insights on how this practice has supported individuals in their recovery?
I think we've seen a lot of people over the years in our own practice, not only just in our studio, but studying and practicing abroad, that yoga seems to be a excellent avenue for people that are in recovery. So I have worked with lots of people and I'm around a lot of people that are in recovery. I've learned a lot from hearing through their experiences. And so, yeah, what seems to happen with addiction is we'll trade one for another and we find something else to replace the other one with, and then we'll just become as obsessive with the new thing. Now, at least with yoga, it is a healthier a way to express our addictive personality. At the same time, I have seen a lot of misuse. When I first came across yoga, I had this idea of, wow, maybe little rose-colored glasses scenario of, cool, there's this ancient, thousands of year old tradition that is leading people toward enlightenment. So, cool, that sounds good. I want some of that. And it can't do me any harm. And it only is going to help. And I think that's really true, especially upon discovery and upon embarking on a yoga journey. But working through some of this stuff it's deep. So it takes time and it's a process. And so I think if the qualities, the nature of the addictive personality gets a little out of control, yoga itself can be dangerous. For example, eating disorder issues. I've seen people disguise their eating disorder as a yogic discipline. There's an obsessiveness in the Ashtanga world. Okay, don't practice on the new or the full moon. And I've seen people take that to a level of like they won't travel, or if they're going from A to B, they're only going to travel on the moon day because they won't be able to practice that day, and that way they'll be able to get their other 6 days a week in. And it gets so regimented and so intense, and it doesn't feel super healthy to me when it gets that crazy. So I've gone there myself with it. The whole diet thing, all the different aspects that yoga sometimes will encourage us toward. I think it requires an incredible level of discernment. I think that as we continue on, we just have to be really aware of, am I treating this like the way I treated other things in my life? And to just build in the space that part of the recovery process is to love ourselves and to just give ourselves a little bit of space. Yeah, I have witnessed a lot, and I think that it's really the best, probably one of the greatest tools out there. I would think everybody who's struggling like this should get into yoga. I just feel that way because it's such a powerful tool.
Right. I feel
And
the same.
so even if there's we're all going to trip along the way, great, no worries, of course. Definitely take the yoga and trade out the other, 100%. But then keep that discernment up so I'm aware of what I'm doing and keep on trucking along.
Yeah,
So,
just turn our addictive behaviors right over to the yogic practice, right? So it's something to be very mindful of and to try to keep a very keen discernment to keep that balance.
for
So
sure.
a lot of times when someone is suffering from addiction, it's because there's a lot of internal pain that they're trying to avoid or not deal with. So how does the inward focus that Ashtanga teaches us, how does that really shift the mindset? Or
Mm.
what's your experience been with that?
Yeah, that's cool because let's take a pose. We'll pick Murchasana D. For those of you that don't know
Okay.
what Murchasana D is, it's a very difficult pose in the primary series that requires taking one leg, putting a foot in a half lotus position, bending the other leg up so that you're compressed like a ball, and then taking an arm and twisting and wrapping it around the leg and catching the hand behind the back, and then trying to breathe 5 full breaths while you have your diaphragm completely constricted, your knees are being squeezed to the nth degree. And the pose in and of itself creates the situation that's indicative of when I'm uncomfortable in my body anyway. And what do I want to do? I want to find something to take that pain away. And I think what starts happening when we start practicing yoga, and characteristically Ashtanga yoga, in my opinion, is Ashtanga stands in its own little world in the sense of it has an intensity that will put you into those uncomfortable positions for only 5 breaths, though. That's one thing I think is really cool. Only for five
Mhm.
breaths, not for eternity. And you start to learn how to breathe in the uncomfortable situation. If you're with a really good teacher, they will help you. They can't guarantee anything because our own egos are so crazy and wild that, like, how can a teacher take responsibility for my madness? But if I get into that position just enough where you're like, whoa, this is really intense. And you start focusing in on how to deal with the suffering, basically. And then you come out of the
Yes.
pose and you go, whew, that's over. I made it.
Ah,
And I
I
was
did
able
it.
to breathe through it. And I
Yeah.
pulled it off. Oh my gosh, that's so
Yeah.
cool. What's next? Oh my
Right.
gosh. And hold it and lift in between and make your ab muscles squeeze like crazy to where it's so uncomfortable and you're like, I can't do it. And your body starts trembling and you're sweating and you're shaking. And the mind is going, why are you doing this? Now, from an addiction perspective, when we're in a lot of pain and our mind starts going, you can just take something. Just like use this, right? So it's training the mind to know this is only temporary. This is not forever. I took my son, getting ready to go to college, up to University of Central Florida in Orlando. He likes to surf, so there's a surf town east of that called New Smyrna Beach, and it's considered the best part in Florida for surf. I saw this truck, and on the back, someone had taken, looked like nail polish or something, maybe chocolate, and it said, "Pain is not forever." And it was like, oh my gosh, who's driving around with this on the back of their truck? Like, pain doesn't last forever. And I'm like, amen, you're right. It does not last
Yes.
forever. It's scary because we just get so freaked out and think we have to do something to get rid of this pain. But when you start going into the pain, and I know this is a delicate thing to do, this is why I think having a teacher is good. Your students are so lucky because you have the double-edged side. You got the yoga side you love, but you also understand there's a finesse to this. There's a
Hmm.
process going on here. And so when you have a good teacher that can help coach you along, you go, oh, really? You want me to sit with this? I can actually sit with this and I'm not going to die. And so I think that is part of the crux of how it can help us when we go out with our friends and we're tempted to go back to our old patterns or whatever, that we can say, no, actually, I'm going to just take a couple breaths right now, feeling some pain, I'm agitated, whatever. Let me just practice my yoga literally right now while I'm hanging out with these folks. Feel it. What is that feeling coming up right now? Oh my God, I feel so uncomfortable. I feel so uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Feel
Hmm.
it. Start breathing. Take 5 breaths. This is your yoga. This is your Mrityasana D. And so I think that for me, that's been like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now it's
Hmm.
making sense. Yeah, this is making sense, right? I could do yoga. I'll do both. There's a reason we're doing it. It's not just some crazy thing we decided to do. There's a real deep reason behind why we're doing our practice.
Absolutely. In the beginning of my practice, my mantra was, I can do anything for 5 breaths. It was like 5 breaths. I can do anything for five
Yes.
breaths, right? So
Yeah.
just sitting in the discomfort, not in the pain, but obviously we don't want pain in yoga. We want just discomfort, like when it comes to bodies